Leave it to Taylor Swift to pull one over on her fans. Her legion of Swifties was eagerly awaiting her new album to drop, and it did, with 16 songs. But then, 2 hours later, Swift took to social media to reveal the Tortured Poets department is actually a double album and released another 15 tracks. So now there are 31 new Taylor Swift songs for fans to listen to as they try to decipher what and who all those lyrics are about. And this is one of those new songs, the title track, The Tortured Poets Department. To talk more about this new album, I want to bring in Jem Aswad. He is the executive music editor of Variety magazine. Jem, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Thank you for having me.
We have you when all the divas release their albums. We talked about Beyonce album a few weeks ago. Really, here we're talking about two people who are holding up the music industry, Taylor and Beyonce. Let me start by asking you, what are your first thoughts on this new double album?
Well, we were as surprised as anyone by the double album. No one in the press knew it was coming, it's fair to say. So it's an awful lot to absorb. Also, there are a couple things that I find surprising or unusual about it. It's even more muted than Midnight's, the album that came before this one. And it's also much more unfiltered emotionally, I think. Well, maybe that's not the word. It's much more raw. And you really feel the hurt, the heartache that she must have been feeling when she wrote those songs. And don't forget, those songs were written probably a year to a year and a half ago. So she's certainly moved on from them now, but the lyrics are almost startling in how just sort of unedited a lot of them feel. So it's been, and how emotional it is, as I said. But there's no bangers on this album. You're not getting any Cruel Summer. You're definitely not getting Me or Shake It Off or anything like that. They're soft, sort of very painful feeling songs, a lot of them.
So interesting, but it does seem like whatever mood she's in, whatever she puts out, I mean, her fans love it, love kind of meeting her where she's at. Last time I checked, and I checked on Variety, your publication, it was about 8 hours ago, it broke 300 million streams on Spotify. I'm guessing that we're well in excess of that right now. Do you see Tortured Poets Department breaking a record?
Oh yeah, it'll probably break all kinds of records. Now, these records get broken every year or two for the most part. I think Adele had the last one for most streamed song in a single day. And when you put out when you're a superstar and you put out 31 songs at once, there's a good chance you're going to break records. Some people do it for a very cynical reason, like they'll just load it up with these really not very substantial songs. But every song on this one is pretty substantial, either lyrically or musically.
I want to talk to you about just how prolific she is. I mean, how it seems like she has been on top now forever. And just when I feel like she has reached the zenith of pop culture ubiquity, she goes and does something new. Do you think that where she's at, like looking at the trajectory of her career and just how many albums have come out, even in, I think, the last 5 or 6 years, do you think this is sustainable? And do you think that is this the pinnacle? Can we go up from here?
Well, what happens with artists like this? Now, you might remember 20 some years ago, Prince was very much at odds with his record label because he wanted to put out more music than they could really promote. They were trying to keep him at an album a year, and Prince was the most insanely prolific artist possibly in history. He didn't sleep very much, and all he was doing was rehearsing, recording, touring, all that. So he was recording upwards of 10 albums worth of material a year, probably more. Taylor is almost on that same clip. And you just wonder how much, because the way things usually go with superstar artists is they'll do a big burst, and then they know they need to go away for a few months to avoid oversaturation, overexposure, people just getting tired of them. But that doesn't seem to be happening with her. The more she puts out, the more her fans seem to eat it up. And not only with new albums, but she's re-recording her old albums as well, which sound very similar to the old ones. It is an absolutely manic recording clip and, songwriting and recording clip that she works at, but she famously works very quickly. Her collaborators work very quickly. They're probably knocking out a couple songs a day, and they're, high quality, thought through songs. It's not like they're just dashing them off. I think she's just working really quickly. And as for how long the audience will have an appetite for it, not seeing any strain yet.
Let's talk about, of course, one of the fun things about listening to a new Taylor Swift album is who are the songs about. I remember interviewing her, by the way, years ago when she was not nearly she was far more accessible to interview than she is right now. But one of the things that her people have said is like, oh, could you not ask questions about the boyfriends? Which, of course, is you can't really agree to as a journalist because so many of the songs are about the boyfriends. Back then, that was the John Mayer, Jake Gyllenhaal era. Here, as you mentioned, of course, this album would have been written about a year and a half ago. That time, she would have just broken up with British actor Joe Alwyn. Her, of course, new relationship is with a football star, with Travis Kelce. Any of tidbits about either one of those relationships that make their way onto the songs?
Well, I think all of these songs were written pre-Travis Kelce. That's, I haven't really, because we got the album in advance, the first half of the album in advance, so we were able to dig into that one a lot more. What was surprising about that is most of the songs there were a few songs that seemed to be about Joe Alwyn, but an awful lot of songs seemed to be about someone who didn't sound like him at all, who was probably Maddie Healy from the 1975. She never even really confirmed a relationship with him in interviews or publicly or whatever. She certainly seems to be confirming it here, and not for nothing, the first song on the album sounds kind of like a 1975 song. Now, Taylor, with her albums, doesn't do anything accidentally. There are no coincidences there. So she is very much aware of that. But most of the songs, the second half I can't speak to quite as much. Most of the songs on the first one would seem to be about Maddie Healy, and she seemed to have been very crushed by that relationship not working out, at least according to the songs.
And I know that fans love finding that out. I think it's one of the reasons why they connect with her so much. But as you said, nothing's by accident. She's a very savvy businesswoman. Jem, thank you so much. Jem Aswad is executive music editor at Variety magazine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.